In solo leveling, Jinwoo stands on the edge of a high-rise, quietly watching the city below. Through his shadow soldiers, he picks up on the sounds and movements of people across the streets, searching for any trace of Jin-ho. Could he have already left the city? Jinwoo finds that unlikely. Jin-ho may only be a D-rank combat-type hunter, but against ordinary civilians, he's more than capable of defending himself. If a vehicle that was supposed to be heading toward the Hunter Bureau suddenly changed course and tried to leave the city, Jin-ho would have immediately noticed something was wrong and resisted. The only clue the attackers left behind was the Scavenger Guild, Dongsu's younger brother, Hwang Dongsu. He must have been waiting patiently for Jinwoo and Jin-ho to arrive in America, all to uncover what really happened to his brother. After all, they were the only two who made it out alive from that dungeon raid. In Hwang's eyes, one of them is responsible. It reminds Jinwoo of Woo Jin-chul's earlier warning. He doesn't regret the decision he made back then, but this entire situation could have been avoided if he had placed a shadow to guard Jin-ho. If anything happens to him, Jinwoo knows the responsibility falls entirely on him. At the same time, in another part of the city, Thomas Andre demands an update. He questions whether Hwang has lost his mind. As an S-rank hunter, he should fully understand the gap in power between himself and Sung Jinwoo. For him to act this recklessly, Thomas decides he can't sit back anymore. Thinking he may have been too forgiving with his guild, Thomas asks Laura for a report. She explains that, with help from the Hunter Bureau, they've tracked Hwang Dongsu's movements over the past month. There were 3 instances where he broke from his usual routine. Hearing this, Thomas immediately orders all available hunters to be dispatched to those locations, but then he pauses, asking how she managed to get the Bureau to cooperate so quickly. Laura replies that she simply told them the truth. If Hwang Dongsu isn't located soon, a direct confrontation between Thomas Andre and Jinwoo is unavoidable. Meanwhile, Adam White reports that all Scavenger Guild activities have been suspended. When the deputy director hears this, he instantly understands. If the entire Scavenger Guild is moving, then Thomas Andre must be leading them. Something major is about to happen. Elsewhere, inside an abandoned factory, one of the guild members hesitantly asks Dongsu if he's certain about his actions. Hwang replies that he has no intention of hurting Jin-ho. There's only one thing he wants to confirm. Thomas may have warned him not to touch Sung Jinwoo, but that was never his plan. There's someone else who can give him the answers he's looking for. He turns to Jin-ho and tells him that if he honestly reveals what happened in that dungeon, what truly happened to his brother, he'll let him walk away unharmed. All he wants is a single statement, one truth, that Sung Jinwoo killed his brother. The moment Hwang hears that, Jin-ho becomes useless to him. Hwang Dongsu looms over the battered and barely conscious Jin-ho, ordering him to wake up. Without hesitation, he drives a brutal punch into Jin-ho's chest, forcing blood out of his mouth. Watching from the side, saying he must be a tank type. Any normal person would have died already. Still confused by how someone who looks so harmless can endure this much, Hwang admits it's impressive, but makes it clear it won't save him. Grabbing Jin-ho, he smashes his head against a steel beam, then leans closer, saying he won't kill him, not yet. Jin-ho will be healed every time he's about to die, so the torture never ends until he breaks. Making things worse, Hwang reveals they're inside an abandoned factory that's been closed for over 5 years. Hwang taunts him, asking if he's ready to talk. Struggling to stay conscious, Jin-ho slowly lifts his head and mutters something. As Hwang leans in to hear him, Jin-ho weakly raises his middle finger and tells him to get lost. Enraged, Hwang slams his head down again. "Watch it, we're not supposed to kill him." Hwang shrugs it off, saying he knows how to control himself. Another hunter nervously asks if they've already gotten enough information, but Hwang just grins and says they're only getting started. Then suddenly, a shadow soldier appears at the entrance, an orc. Hwang casually removes his jacket, narrowing his eyes at it, joking if a dungeon break happened nearby. But something feels off. The orc is shaking. Why would a orc scared? Just as Hwang moves to attack, a voice cuts through the air. Exchange. Elsewhere, at Jinwoo's apartment, his mother is watching TV when Baru rises from the shadows and speaks calmly. "If there ever comes a moment our king cannot endure," he says, "then this world is already finished." At the same time, the Knights Guild is preparing for a raid. Yuntai suddenly mentions that the shadows beneath him just moved. His guildmaster brushes it off, joking that he's been drinking, but Yuntai insists he hasn't, convinced something is seriously wrong. On a highway, Thomas Andre suddenly orders the car to stop. Sensing something big, he kicks the door open and jumps out, telling the driver to catch up. He dashes forward at incredible speed, leaving his agents behind, who sigh about the damage he's going to cause. One of them mutters that he could have just stayed in the car. Back at the factory, without a word, he punches Hwang straight in the stomach, sending him crashing away. The other hunters freeze in shock, while Jin-ho, barely conscious, manages to smile. Now the Shadow Monarch has arrived, his presence filled with pure rage. As Jin uses a healing potion, the system notifies him that it won't work if the target's its health falls below 10%. Irritated, he demands to know if anyone there can heal and orders them to save his vice master. One of the men, the one wearing glasses, replies that they don't understand Korean. Meanwhile, Dongsu, now recovered, pieces things together and explains that Jin is asking them to treat the injured boy. Intrigued, Dongsu asks if this is Jinwoo's first encounter with him. Jin ignores the question and instead faces the man with glasses, delivering a final warning. Panicking, the man says they need permission from their boss, but before he can finish, Jin seizes him and slams him into a steel beam. Trembling, Blackie tells Dongsu they had no idea this guy was connected to Jinwoo. Growing more impatient, Jin sharply demands once again, can he heal or not? Before an answer comes, the man with glasses freezes under the crushing force of Jin's ruler's authority. Sensing the shift, Dongsu steps in and accuses Jin of killing his brother, Hwang Dongseok. Quietly, Jinho warns Jin that this man is Hwang Dongseok's older brother and urges caution. Jin cuts him off, telling him to stay out of it. Dongsu then presses him directly. Did he kill his brother and his entire squad? As the tension peaks, Jin responds coldly that he can ask his brother himself when he meets him in the afterlife. Furious, Dongsu lunges forward, but Jin easily evades and counters with a heavy blow to his abdomen. Dongsu spits blood as he's launched backward, crashing into a nearby pipe. Before he can recover, Jin appears right in front of him. With a shout, Dongsu is grabbed by the head and slammed repeatedly into the metal pipe, blood spraying with each impact. Suddenly, Thomas Andre arrives, yelling at Jin to stop. Thomas Andre asks Dongsu if he's still alive. Dongsu gives a slight nod. Thomas offers a deal. Let Hwang go, and they'll pretend none of this ever happened. Calm and unimpressed, Jin asks what happens if he says no. Thomas answers bluntly. Then he'll step in and stop him himself. With a faint smirk, Jin throws Dongsu aside, making it clear he's forcing Thomas's hand. When Thomas questions whether Jin has any idea who he's dealing with, Jin responds coldly, it doesn't matter. That answer throws Thomas off for a moment. He knows Jin recognizes him, yet still refuses to back down. Thomas came from nothing, raised in a poor immigrant household surrounded by struggle. He had no power, no status, until the day the world changed and he was given overwhelming strength, a kind of power that made him untouchable. Fight after fight, he proved his dominance. He watched opponents crumble in fear, felt his strength impose itself on everyone around him. That power brought him wealth, influence, and control. Anyone who challenged him was crushed. Anyone who disrespected him was dealt with. For Thomas, violence solved everything. Now, standing face to face with Jinwoo, he's ready to remind the world exactly who he is. At that moment, the Scavenger Guild arrives, their forces quickly forming ranks. Suddenly, a powerful shockwave tears through the area, flipping cars and kicking up clouds of dust. As visibility returns, Thomas casually brushes off his men's concern, signaling that he's fine. One of the agents starts barking orders, directing everyone into position. Jin orders Igris to take Jinho to the nearest hospital and make sure he gets the best treatment possible. Kaisel rises into the air with Jinho, disappearing into the distance. Back on the battlefield, the atmosphere tightens. Thomas stands firm with the full might of the Scavenger Guild behind him, while Jin faces him with his shadow army at the ready. A grin spreads across Thomas's face as he mutters that things are finally getting interesting. At this point, he doesn't care about Dongsu anymore. Restoring his pride by crushing the man in front of him, Thomas Andre steps forward and tells Jin that if he admits his mistake and backs off now, he might let him live. Jin's response is simple. He flips him off and calls him a bastard. Power surging, Thomas warns him he'll regret ignoring his last chance. The air grows heavy as radiant energy wraps around the elite hunter army, while Jin's massive shadow army advances. The tankers on Thomas's side move first, forming a wall of light that halts the initial wave of shadows. Thomas wastes no time. He storms straight into the darkness, tearing through shadow soldiers with overwhelming force. When he comes face to face with Tusk, the high-ranking ogre mage, he launches upward and drives a punch straight through his skull, killing him instantly. Landing hard, he casually notes how easy it feels. Locking onto Jinwoo, Thomas charges again. One of Jin's shadow tanks slides in to block him, but Thomas snarls and blasts it away with a single hit. In the next moment, Jin appears behind him and slashes at his ribs, but the blade doesn't even leave a mark. Caught off guard, Jin is struck by a brutal backhand that sends him flying across the battlefield. Thomas reminds him not to underestimate national-level hunters. Using telekinesis, he drags Jin toward him, aiming to crush him and prove the difference in their power. But Jin pushes back, activating his own telekinetic force and stopping Thomas mid-motion. Confusion flashes across Thomas's face as he realizes he's the one being held in place. Before he can react, Jin bursts forward and lands a clean punch to his face, knocking him back and drawing blood. Thomas steadies himself, but Jin is already rushing in again, mocking his earlier confidence. chance. In response, Thomas unleashes a relentless barrage from every angle, forcing Jin on the defensive. Now fully serious, Thomas activates Reinforce. Meanwhile, the Hunter Bureau races toward the battlefield. The driver, clearly shaken, asks Adam White what's going on. Adam stays silent, but the driver warns that the threat level is insane. Civilians can't feel it, but getting any closer could be fatal. At that moment, Jin recalls something crucial. There are 4 individuals who inherited the ruler's power. He believes they're the same ones who survived the legendary Kamish raid, and one of them stands before him now. Thomas charges again, lifting both arms before slamming them down, shattering the ground with raw force. Jin barely dodges, but Thomas immediately follows up with capture. Hunters nearby shout for retreat as a swirling black sphere forms, devouring shadow soldiers like a void. Jin realizes that without his own ruler's authority, he would have been pulled in as well. As the warehouse collapses under the pressure of their clash, Jin leaps onto a steel beam, looking down at the destruction. Above, Thomas glares and growls that this time Jin won't escape. Everything spirals into chaos. Members of the scavenger guild rush to pull out the wounded, moving through the wreckage around them. In the middle of it all, one man looks up just in time to see Thomas launch himself into the air, flying straight at Jinwoo with full force. But the Shadow Monarch reacts instantly. He plants his foot on Thomas's head mid-air and uses the momentum to spring away. Refusing to let him go, Thomas activates capture, trying to drag Jin back. Jin answers immediately with ruler's authority, pulling his arm back for a crushing counterattack. Thomas pauses for a second, questioning if Jin really intends to clash head-on. Then, with a grin, he activates reinforcement and accepts. Their fists collide, releasing a massive shockwave that tears through the warehouse and sends both of them smashing through steel and concrete. Jin regains his footing first, while Thomas bursts out from the debris and charges again without slowing down. He throws a heavy punch, but Jin slips past it. The mist strike shatters the ground behind him, and in that opening, Jin grabs him by the horns and slams a knee into his face, cracking his skull. Hunter Bureau agents arrive just in time to witness the fight. One warns Adam White that this is far beyond dangerous and tells him to prepare himself. Watching the destruction unfold, Adam can barely process what he's seeing as Thomas and Jin tear through everything in their path. Realizing the opponent is Jinwoo, Adam asks what they can even do. The agent, stunned, says there's nothing left to try. Thomas is being completely overwhelmed by the Shadow Monarch. He can't understand how someone labeled as a magic-type hunter has this level of physical power and speed. Bruised and broken, Thomas begins to doubt himself. Losing feels impossible to him, yet it's right in front of him. Refusing to accept it, he charges once more, aiming to rip Jin apart, but Jin blocks him again and fires back with another crushing blow. Driven by pride and his identity as the strongest, Thomas shouts his name, demanding Jin stop looking down on him. Jin doesn't react. He smashes an elbow into Thomas's head and calmly makes it clear that titles don't matter. As the fight nears its end, Adam begs Jin to stop. Jin responds with a relentless series of strikes, breaking through Thomas's armor and spirit. Finally accepting defeat, Thomas collapses. Jin raises his fist for one last hit, then lowers it, ending the fight. Adam stands there, stunned, unable to grasp that Jin defeated someone on Thomas Andre's level. He wonders if anyone else alive could pull off something like this. Probably not. If this ever becomes public, the impact would be huge. Snapping back to reality, Adam calls for immediate medical help. A healer rushes in but admits he can't handle it alone. Thomas's entire body is shattered, and he's lost a massive amount of blood. Only someone with his durability could still be alive. Anyone else would have died many times over. Adam tries to find some relief in the situation. At least there were no deaths, but that thought doesn't last long. Another agent arrives with grim news. Hwang Dongsu has stopped breathing. His heart is gone, and Sung Jinwoo is nowhere to be found. Jin stands on the edge of a high-rise, watching the city stretch out beneath him. He notes that he used shadow exchange with Baru to arrive instantly. He tells one of his shadows that this place is Seoul. At the same time, Baru is likely still in America, doing everything possible to restore Jinho. Jin then summons one of his shadows, who kneels and speaks with deep respect. The shadow asks his king to grant him a name. Jin recalls how this man fell due to his overwhelming desire for more. Taking that into account, he names him Greed, then asks for his thoughts. The shadow expresses gratitude, but Jin immediately orders him to lower his head again, reinforcing the hierarchy between them. The following day, at the International Guild Conference, Jin steps in and is instantly swarmed by reporters. A deputy informs him that news of his recent battle has already spread everywhere. He warns that avoiding attention today won't be possible, thinking privately about how effortlessly Jin overwhelmed the scavenger guild. The deputy continues, explaining that officials have gathered testimonies from Dongsu's former associates and that a formal report will be released soon. Jin shows no interest. He didn't come to America to linger on what already happened. Once he gets what he came for, he intends to leave immediately. As things move forward, Jin receives a pair of earbuds for live translation during the conference. The moment he enters the hall, the atmosphere shifts. Every eye locks onto him. Slightly drenched, he stands without a word, his presence alone dominating the room.